The massive command ship, Eternal Dominion, drifted silently through the void, its hull stretching over 15 kilometers from bow to stern. Inside the strategic planning chamber, holographic displays flickered with data streams from across the galaxy. Admiral Vextar, his forearms crossed behind his back, studied the swirling blue marble that appeared before him. Earth, such a small, insignificant world, he muttered, his mandibles clicking in amusement. The other members of the War Council, representatives from 11 different species, gathered around the projection. There was Commander Zek from the insectoid, Krishan Empire, her compound eyes reflecting the planet's light. General Thos, a towering rock-like being from Petra Prime, stood motionless as stone. Each species brought their own strengths to the Zephyrian hegemony, and together they had conquered hundreds of worlds. "Intelligence reports are consistent, Admiral," said Lieutenant Yara, her tentacles dancing across the control interface. "The humans still rely on primitive chemical propulsion. Their most advanced vessels barely reach their own moon. Nuclear weapons appear to be their strongest military asset." A series of intercepted human transmissions began playing through the chamber's speakers. The council listened to news broadcasts discussing military budgets, space programs, and something called planetary defense initiatives. The aliens exchanged glances, some barely containing their laughter. "Listen to this," Commander Jek chittered, replaying a human news segment. "They speak of launching a few dozen satellites and call it a defense network. Their leaders debate spending billions on what they call advanced fighter jets that cannot even leave their atmosphere." General Thos rumbled like grinding stone. "Our scouts report their largest military vessel is less than 300 meters long. A single hegemony cruiser could destroy their entire navy." The holographic display shifted, showing detailed scans of Earth's major cities. Massive populations clustered in sprawling urban centers, completely unprotected from orbital bombardment. Their industrial capacity seemed focused on primitive manufacturing, steel, concrete, basic electronics. Nothing that could threaten even the smallest hegemony patrol ship. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Advanced Reconnaissance Squadron," announced the communications officer. The main display shifted to show Captain Mord, a reptilian saurian whose scales gleamed under his ship's bridge lighting. "Report, Captain," Vextar commanded. "Sir, we've completed detailed scans of the human home system. 9 planets, various asteroids, and debris. The humans have small outposts on their moon and a few scattered probes throughout their system. No orbital defenses detected. No energy shields around their planet. Their satellites appear to be for communication and weather monitoring only." The War Council erupted in pleased hisses, clicks, and growls. This would be even easier than anticipated. "What of their military installations?" asked Commander Zek. "Surface-based only, ma'am. Missile silos containing nuclear warheads, aircraft hangars, naval ports, standard primitive setup. Their most advanced facility appears to be something called the International Space Station, a tiny research platform with maybe 6 occupants." Admiral Vextar's mandibles spread wide in what passed for a smile among his species. "Excellent. How long until the main fleet arrives?" 47 hours until we reach the outer edge of their system, sir. Shall we begin broadcasting surrender demands?" "Not yet, Captain. Let them see our full might first. Fear will make them more compliant." Vexatar turned to address the full council. "Prepare the invasion protocols. I want mining platforms ready to deploy the moment their surrender is complete. Their planet shows rich deposits of rare minerals, and their population will provide adequate labor." The holographic display updated to show the approaching hegemony fleet. 10,000 warships of various classes moved in perfect formation through space. Massive dreadnoughts, each capable of cracking a planet's crust. Swift destroyers that could outrun anything in known space. Carrier vessels loaded with fighter craft and boarding pods. Support ships carrying millions of robotic workers and automated mining equipment. "Sir," Lieutenant Yara's voice carried a note of curiosity. "The humans continue broadcasting on all frequencies. They seem to be discussing evacuation procedures and something called Code 7 protocols. Should we be concerned?" The council erupted in laughter, Even the stoic general, Thos made a sound like rocks tumbling. Evacuation procedures, wheezed Commander Jek, as if they have anywhere to run. Admiral Vextar waved a dismissive hand. Typical primitive panic response. They know they cannot fight, so they prepare to hide. It matters little. Our sensors will find them wherever they flee. The Great Fleet continued its inexorable advance toward the small blue world. Behind them stretched the wake of conquered civilizations, planets stripped of resources, populations enslaved or relocated, entire species bent to serve the hegemony's will. Earth would be no different. Within 2 standard cycles, the Zephyrian hegemony would add another world to their vast empire. The humans, with their crude rockets and simple weapons, would learn what countless others had discovered. Resistance against the hegemony was futile. The warning klaxons aboard the Eternal Dominion fell silent as the hegemony fleet reached the outer edge of the Sol system. Admiral Vexitar stood before the massive view screen, his forearms clasped behind his back as he gazed upon the approaching human vessels. What he saw made his mandibles click in pure amusement. 200 ships, he announced to the bridge crew, his voice dripping with mockery. The entire human defense force consists of 200 tiny vessels. Commander Jek skittered closer to the tactical display, her compound eyes analyzing the formation. Admiral, their largest ship appears to be roughly 800 meters in length. Our smallest frigates are twice that size. The human vessels moved in a loose formation, their hulls gleaming silver against the backdrop of space. They looked sleek, almost elegant, but pitifully small compared to the hegemony's massive dreadnoughts. Some of the alien crew members were openly laughing, their various chittering, growling, and hissing sounds filling the bridge. "Incoming transmission from the human fleet," announced Lieutenant Yara, her tentacles dancing across the communication console. "They're requesting to speak with our commanding officer." "Put them through," Vextar commanded, straightening his ornate uniform. "Let's hear what these primitives have to say." The main screen flickered, revealing a human male in a crisp blue uniform. His hair was graying at the temples, and his dark eyes held a calm confidence that seemed oddly out of place given the circumstances. The nameplate on his chest read, Admiral Chen. "Greetings," the human said, his voice steady and polite. I am Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. I'm transmitting on behalf of the United Earth Government to request that you withdraw from our solar system immediately." The bridge erupted in laughter. General Thos's rumbling chuckle sounded like an avalanche, while Commander Jek's chittering rose to a high pitch. Even the normally stoic communications officers couldn't contain their amusement. Admiral Vextar stepped forward, his mandibles spread wide in a predatory grin. "Admiral Chen, I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your request is amusing. You face 10,000 warships with your tiny fleet, yet you demand we withdraw?" "I'm not demanding anything," Chen replied calmly. "I'm making a polite request. Turn your ships around and leave our system. No one needs to get hurt today." The laughter on the bridge grew even louder. Captain Mord's voice crackled over the communication system from his reconnaissance ship. "Admiral, I'm detecting no energy signatures from their weapon systems. Their ships appear to be completely unarmed." Vextar's amusement peaked. "Unarmed vessels? Admiral Chen, are you planning to ram our ships with your pathetic little craft?" But something was bothering Lieutenant Yara at the sensor station. Her tentacles moved frantically across her controls, double-checking her readings. "Sir, I'm getting some unusual readings from the human ships. Their energy signatures are strange." "Define strange," Vextar commanded, his attention still focused on the human admiral's unnaturally calm demeanor. "Well, sir, according to our sensors, they're using standard fusion drives for propulsion. But there's something else. Space around their vessels appears to be distorting somehow, like they're bending light around their hulls." Commander Jek turned from her tactical display, confusion evident in her compound eyes. "That's impossible. Gravitational manipulation requires massive energy expenditure. Our own ships can barely manage minor field adjustments." Admiral Chen's image on the screen remained perfectly composed. "Admiral Vextar, I'll ask one more time. Please withdraw your forces. You don't understand what you're dealing with here. Oh, but I do understand perfectly, Vextar replied, his voice growing harder. I understand that your species has sent lambs to face wolves, your 200 ships against our 10,000, your primitive technology against our advanced weaponry. Sir, Lieutenant Yara's voice carried a note of concern now. The distortions around the human ships are intensifying, and I'm detecting some kind of quantum fluctuations in the space around them. General Thoss rumbled from his position near the tactical display. Quantum fluctuations? Are they attempting to open wormholes? Impossible with their technology level. The human ships began moving into a different formation, spreading out across a vast area of space. Their movements were fluid, almost dance-like, as if they were performing some kind of coordinated maneuver. What was most unsettling was how perfectly synchronized they appeared to be. Admiral, called out the weapons officer, our targeting systems are having difficulty locking onto the human vessels. The space distortions are interfering with our sensors. Vextar's mandibles clicked in irritation. Then compensate for the interference. This is probably some primitive jamming technology. But Lieutenant Yara's readings were becoming more alarming by the moment. Sir, the quantum signatures are unlike anything in our database, and the gravitational distortions, they're not random. They're following precise mathematical patterns. Admiral Chen leaned forward slightly on the screen. Admiral Vextar, I can see you're running scans on our ships. What are your sensors telling you? The question hung in the air like a challenge. For the first time since the encounter began, Vextar felt a small flicker of uncertainty. The humans' tone suggested he knew exactly what the hegemony sensors were detecting. Our sensors detect outdated human technology, Vextar replied, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Chen smiled, a small, knowing expression that somehow seemed more unsettling than any threat. Your sensors are detecting exactly what we want them to detect, Admiral. The question is, are you smart enough to realize what that means? The bridge fell silent except for the quiet humming of the ship's systems. In the distance, the human fleet continued its elegant dance through space, their ships moving with impossible precision around gravitational fields that shouldn't exist. Captain Mord's patience finally snapped. His reptilian claws gripped the armrests of his command chair as he watched the human ships continue their strange dance through space. The distortions around their vessels were making his targeting systems go crazy, and Admiral Chen's calm smile on the communication screen felt like a personal insult. Admiral Vextar, Mord's gravelly voice crackled through the communication. System, request permission to demonstrate our superiority. One shot from my plasma cannon will vaporize their lead ship and end this charade. Vextar hesitated for a moment, studying the tactical display. The human formation looked almost mocking in its casual arrangement. Permission granted, Captain. Target their flagship. Minimum power setting, we want prisoners for interrogation. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change as he heard the exchange. If anything, his smile grew slightly wider. You're making a mistake, Admiral Vextar. The only mistake, Mord snarled as his weapons officer locked onto the largest human vessel, is yours for thinking you could intimidate the hegemony. The scout ship's main plasma cannon charged with a distinctive whine that could be heard throughout both fleets. Energy readings spiked as the weapon reached firing capacity. Mord's tactical officer counted down the final seconds. Fire, Mord commanded. A brilliant lance of superheated plasma shot across space, covering the distance between the ships in seconds. The energy beam struck the human vessel dead center, where their bridge should have been located. The aliens aboard the Eternal Dominion leaned forward, expecting to see the familiar sight of hull metal vaporizing and atmosphere venting into space. Instead, something impossible happened. The plasma beam struck what appeared to be empty space around the human ship and simply stopped. A shimmering barrier of energy became visible for a split second, absorbing the entire blast without any apparent effort. The destructive force that should have gutted the vessel disappeared like water soaking into sand. What? Captain Mord's voice trailed off in disbelief. On the human ship, there wasn't even a scorch mark. The vessel continued its gentle drift through space as if nothing had happened. Admiral Chen's image on the communication screen looked genuinely disappointed. "You had your chance to leave peacefully," Chen said, shaking his head. "Now you'll see what Earth's real defense capabilities look like." The space around the human fleet began to shimmer. At first it looked like heat distortion, but then the effect intensified. Reality itself seemed to ripple outward from each human vessel like stones dropped in a calm pond. "Admiral," Lieutenant Yara's voice rose in panic. "Massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system. Something's coming out of... I don't know what it's coming out of." The 200 human ships that had seemed so pathetically small suddenly weren't alone anymore. Space itself was tearing open around them, revealing glimpses of star-filled voids that definitely weren't the Sol system. From these impossible rifts emerged vessels that dwarfed anything in the hegemony fleet. The first ship to fully materialize was easily 3 times the size of the Eternal Dominion. Its hull was a dark metallic blue that seemed to absorb light, rather than reflect it. Strange geometric patterns covered its surface, pulsing with an inner luminescence that hurt to look at directly. Then another appeared, and another. Within minutes, thousands of human vessels filled the space around the Sol system. They emerged from what could only be described as folded space. Doorways that opened in the fabric of reality itself, allowing massive fleets to step through from other locations instantly. "By the void," General Thoss rumbled, his rock-like composure finally cracking. "How many ships do they have?" The human vessels were unlike anything in the hegemony's databases. Some were sleek and curved, like living creatures. Others were angular geometric shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the eye could process. A few defied description entirely, their forms shifting and changing as if they were made of controlled energy rather than solid matter. "Admiral," Commander Jek chittered in growing fear, "our fleet scanners are detecting over 8,000 human vessels, and more are still arriving. Some of them are... Admiral, some of them are larger than space stations." One of the newly arrived human ships was indeed the size of a small moon. Its surface bristled with weapon emplacements that made the hegemony's most powerful cannons look like primitive projectile weapons. Energy readings from that single vessel exceeded the combined output of a dozen hegemony dreadnoughts. Admiral Vextar felt his confidence crumbling like sand. "How is this possible? Our intelligence reports showed primitive rocket technology, chemical propulsion, nuclear weapons." Admiral Chen's image flickered on the main screen, and now his expression was all business. "Your intelligence was monitoring our civilian networks, Admiral. Entertainment broadcasts, commercial internet traffic, public news feeds. Did you really think a species capable of interstellar communication would put their military secrets on social media?" The implications hit the alien command crew like a physical blow. All their reconnaissance, all their careful planning, had been based on watching Earth's equivalent of television shows and news broadcasts. They had seen what humans wanted them to see. "You've been studying our movies and our shopping websites," Chen continued, "while our actual defense fleets have been preparing for your arrival. We've known about the hegemony for over 40 years. Lieutenant Yara's tentacles were shaking as she processed the sensor readings. "Sir, the energy signatures from these ships, they're operating on principles our science doesn't even understand. Some of them appear to be manipulating fundamental forces we thought were impossible to control." A new human vessel decloaked directly above the hegemony fleet. This one was different from the others. Instead of the dark metallic hulls, it appeared to be made of crystalline structures that caught and refracted light in impossible ways. Energy cascaded along its surface like captured lightning. "That ship," whispered the weapons officer. "It's not just bigger than our flagship. According to sensors, it's generating more power than our entire fleet combined." Admiral Chen's voice carried a note of genuine regret. "You came here expecting to find a primitive civilization with crude weapons. Instead, you've discovered that humanity has been preparing for this moment since before your great-grandparents were born. The question now is, what are you going to do about it?" The hegemony fleet, which had seemed so overwhelmingly powerful just minutes before, now looked like a collection of toys floating in an ocean of technological superiority they couldn't even begin to comprehend. Captain Mord, desperate to salvage some dignity from the disaster, ordered his remaining squadron to attack the nearest human vessel. All ships concentrate fire on that crystalline monstrosity. Show them we're not defenseless. 6 hegemony destroyers opened fire simultaneously, their plasma cannons and particle beams creating a light show that lit up the darkness of space. The energy discharge was enough to crack a planet's surface, yet as the devastating barrage approached the human ship, something extraordinary happened. The crystalline vessel didn't even attempt to dodge. Instead, the space around it began to fold like origami. The incoming weapons fire struck what appeared to be the ship's hull, but instead passed through rifts in reality itself, disappearing into pocket dimensions that swallowed the energy completely. Impossible, breathed Commander Zek, her compound, eyes tracking the battle. They're not just deflecting our weapons, they're making them cease to exist. But the human ship wasn't finished. Without warning, it simply vanished from its position and reappeared instantly behind Mord's flagship. There was no acceleration, no visible movement. One moment it was kilometers away, the next it was close enough that its hull filled the entire view screen. How did they? Mord began, but his question was answered when space folded again. The human vessel had moved through folded dimensions, traveling vast distances in zero time by taking shortcuts through reality itself. Admiral Vextar watched in growing horror as his forces were systematically outmaneuvered. Human ships were appearing and disappearing throughout the battle zone, striking with surgical precision before vanishing again. Their weapons weren't just advanced. They operated on principles that defied everything the hegemony understood about physics. "Sir, incoming transmission from Battle Group 7, Lieutenant Yara reported, her voice trembling. "Admiral Cross is requesting immediate reinforcement." The holographic display shifted to show Admiral Cross, a proud Saurian commander, whose scales were now dulled with fear. Behind him, his bridge crew worked frantically at their stations while warning lights flashed. "Admiral Vextar," Cross hissed, "we're facing something beyond our comprehension. A single human dreadnought has engaged our entire battle group. It's not even firing weapons. It's doing something to gravity itself." The tactical display showed Battle Group 7's 24 ships arranged in a defensive formation, but they were moving in ways that made no sense. Their hulls were being compressed, twisted, as if caught in the grip of an invisible giant. "Explain," Vextar demanded. "The human ship is manipulating gravitational fields with pinpoint accuracy," Cross replied, his voice growing more desperate. "It's creating localized gravity wells around our vessels, crushing our shields without firing a single shot. My flagship's hull is already showing stress fractures." On the display, they could see the human dreadnought responsible for the attack. It was a massive vessel shaped like an elongated teardrop, its surface covered in what looked like geometric patterns that pulsed with inner light. Around it, space itself was bending and warping as the ship's gravity manipulators worked their impossible magic. "Admiral," one of Cross's officers called out, "shield integrity down to 30%. The gravity field is crushing us like an empty can." "Surrender," Cross ordered, his pride finally breaking. "All ships, power down weapons and engines. Transmit surrender signals immediately." The moment the hegemony ships powered down, the crushing gravity fields disappeared. The human dreadnought held position, neither advancing nor retreating, simply maintaining its overwhelming presence. But the reports from Battle Group 7 were just the beginning. Communication channels throughout the hegemony fleet began lighting up with increasingly desperate transmissions. "Admiral, urgent message from the Krishan homeworld," announced the communications officer. The main screen filled with the image of Empress Zara, ruler of the Insectoid Empire. Her usual composure was completely shattered. "Admiral Vextar," she chittered rapidly, "human fleets have appeared in orbit around all 12 hegemony homeworlds, simultaneously. They didn't travel here. They simply materialized out of nowhere. How is this possible?" The implications struck Vextar like a physical blow. All 12 homeworlds? At the same time? "The humans have been coordinating this attack across the entire galaxy," Empress Zara continued. "Their ships communicate instantly across impossible distances. When one fleet learned of your attack on Earth, every human fleet in the galaxy knew about it at the same moment. General Thoss rumbled in disbelief. Instantaneous communication across galactic distances? That would require quantum entanglement, on a scale we thought was theoretical. Lieutenant Yara's tentacles danced frantically across her console as more reports flooded in. Sir, similar transmissions from Petra Prime, Saurian Central, and the Crystalline Confederacy. Every hegemony member world is reporting the same thing, human fleets appearing without warning, demonstrating technology that makes our most advanced systems look primitive. The tactical display updated to show the scope of humanity's operation. Across the galaxy, dots of light marked every hegemony world, and at each one, human ships had appeared in overwhelming numbers. The coordination was perfect, the timing flawless. It was as if humanity had been planning this response for decades. Admiral, the communications officer called out, "We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander. Admiral Chen is requesting to speak with you." Chen's image appeared on the screen, but now he was flanked by holographic representations of human admirals from across the galaxy. Each one commanded a fleet positioned at a different hegemony world. "Admiral Vextar," Chen said calmly, "I believe you're beginning to understand the situation. The Zephyrian hegemony is surrounded. Every one of your homeworlds, every major military installation, every industrial center, all of them are currently under the protection of Earth's defense fleets." The word protection carried an unmistakable irony that wasn't lost on anyone listening. "You've made a fundamental error in your assessment of humanity," Chen continued. "You saw our civilian technology and assumed it represented our capabilities. You monitored our entertainment and mistook it for our reality. While you were watching our movies and reading our news, we were building a defense network that spans the galaxy." One of the other human admirals, a woman with silver hair, spoke up. "Our AI systems have been coordinating this response across 12,000 light-years of space. Every human ship in the galaxy is connected to a quantum consciousness network that processes information faster than your organic minds can comprehend." Admiral Vextar felt the last of his confidence drain away. The hegemony, which had conquered hundreds of worlds through superior technology and overwhelming force, had encountered something far beyond their understanding. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for this war, they had been preparing to end it before it could truly begin. The silence on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display showing human fleets positioned at every single hegemony world, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. The reality of their situation was crushing. They hadn't just lost a battle, they had discovered. They were already defeated before they even knew a war had begun. Admiral Chen's calm voice broke the silence. "Admiral Vextar, I think it's time we had an honest conversation about humanity's place in this galaxy." The main view screen shifted to show Chen standing in what appeared to be a vast command center. Behind him, holographic displays showed real-time images from across the galaxy. Every hegemony homeworld, every major military installation, all under the watchful presence of human vessels. "For 43 years, Chen began, humanity has been aware of the Zephyrian hegemony. We watched you conquer world after world, enslave entire species, strip planets of their resources. We could have revealed ourselves at any time, but we chose to remain hidden." Commander Zhek's compound eyes reflected the display lights as she processed this information. 43 years? But our first contact with your system was only weeks ago. Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Your first official contact, yes. But we've been monitoring your communications, your military movements, your expansion patterns since before many of you were born. Every time you sent scouts to map a new region of space, human observation posts were already there, watching from the shadows." The holographic display behind Chen shifted to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of tiny lights began appearing, human outposts, hidden bases, observation stations scattered throughout space. They formed a vast network that encompassed not just human territory but hegemony space as well. "Impossible," General Thoss rumbled. "Our sensors would have detected such installations." "Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect," replied Admiral Torres, the silver-haired woman who had spoken earlier. "We've been using dimensional phase technology for over 2 decades. Our installations exist slightly out of phase with normal space. To your sensors, they simply don't exist. Lieutenant Yara's tentacles shook as she studied her console. Sir, if I recalibrate our sensors to detect dimensional variations, by the void, they're everywhere. There are human installations within our own territory, some within light years of our homeworlds. The scope of humanity's deception was staggering. While the hegemony had been planning their conquest of Earth, humans had been quietly surrounding them, studying them, preparing for this exact moment. Why? Admiral Vextar finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why reveal yourselves, now? Chen's expression grew serious. Because you forced our hand. We were content to remain hidden, to continue developing our technology in peace. But when you decided to invade Earth to enslave our people, you left us no choice but to show you the truth. The truth. The word hung in the air like a judgment. The hegemony, which had thought itself the supreme power in the galaxy, had been living in an illusion created by beings they considered primitive. Your technology, Commander Jek chittered nervously. The gravity manipulation, the dimensional folding, the instantaneous communication. How long have you possessed such capabilities? Our first successful gravity manipulation experiments were conducted 38 years ago, Chen replied matter-of-factly. Dimensional folding came 6 years later. The quantum consciousness network that allows our ships to coordinate across the galaxy has been operational for over a decade. Admiral Vextar felt ancient, suddenly aware that while he had been celebrating victories over primitive worlds, humanity had been developing technology that made his finest weapons look like stone axes. What happens now? He asked, dreading the answer. Chen stepped forward and his image seemed to fill the entire view screen. Now, Admiral, you have a choice. The Zephyrian hegemony can withdraw immediately from all conquered territories and sign a non-aggression pact with humanity. Or, the display behind Chen shifted to show a single human vessel, one of the massive dreadnoughts that had appeared around Earth. As they watched, the ship began to glow with an inner light that grew brighter and brighter until it was painful to look at directly. Or you can discover what happens when humanity stops being patient, Chen finished. The demonstration was brief but terrifying. The human dreadnought released its energy in a controlled burst that traveled across space faster than light itself. When it reached a distant asteroid, the space rock simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but erased from reality as if it had never been. Matter dissolution at the quantum level, Admiral Torres explained clinically. We can unmake objects at the subatomic level, returning their component particles to the quantum foam from which they originally emerged. General Thas's rocky composure finally cracked completely. You could destroy entire worlds. We could unmake entire star systems if we chose to, Chen replied. But we won't. Because unlike the hegemony, humanity doesn't conquer through destruction. We prefer peace, Admiral Vextar. But we will defend ourselves and others if necessary. The communications officer interrupted with incoming messages from across the galaxy. Sir, all hegemony commanders are requesting immediate instructions. The human fleets are maintaining position but not advancing. Admiral Vextar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Fear, confusion, and dawning comprehension reflected in their alien features. The hegemony's age of expansion was over. They had encountered a power so far beyond their understanding that resistance was not just futile, it was absurd. Admiral Chen, Vextar said slowly, what are your terms? Complete withdrawal from all conquered worlds within 1 standard year. Reparations to be paid to enslaved species. Immediate cessation of all hostile activities. And a formal non-aggression treaty between humanity and the hegemony. The terms were generous considering humanity's overwhelming advantage. They could have demanded the complete dissolution of the hegemony, could have turned conquerors into slaves. Instead, they offered survival. And if we agree to these terms? Then humanity returns to the shadows, Chen replied. We continue our own development in peace, and the galaxy continues to turn. Your species survive, your homeworlds remain your own, and you learn to coexist rather than conquer. Admiral Vextar realized he was witnessing the end of an era, The hegemony had thought itself the pinnacle of galactic civilization, but they had been children playing with toys while humanity built wonders beyond imagination. "I accept your terms," he said quietly. "The hegemony fleet will withdraw immediately." As the human fleets began to fade from view, disappearing back into their dimensional folds and quantum shadows, Admiral Vextar understood the most humbling truth of all. Humanity had won this war before the hegemony even knew it existed.